How's it going, everyone? David from dodmedia. Today I'm going to be showing you the audio post-production workflow that I went through to create this kind of Stranger Things effect on my voiceover for a recent video that I did.
This is an unusual build for a DJI RS3 Pro. I've removed the battery grip and replaced it with SmallRig's power base plate.
And it's really quite simple. I did the whole thing in Premiere Pro. So let's jump in and have a look. So this is a pretty simple timeline. As you can see, you've got a voiceover track that's just echoes in a lower caliber. And then here you have a music track. That's it. Now, the way that I mix my audio in Premiere Pro is actually not mixing the audio clips themselves, but rather the track. And so I come up to my track mixer up here. If you don't have it there, you go to Window and you can find Audio Track Mixer for whichever sequence you want to highlight. Now, by default, it will probably look like this. You won't see that effects rack. You have to come up to this stupidly small little white arrow that they have very, very, very well hidden and drop that down, and then you get an effects rack. Now, in each effects rack, you have 5 slots for effects per track. If you want to add more than 5, you can go into assigning it to a submix, but I'm not going to go into that. I've gone into that in previous audio mixing tutorials, so search my channel for those. But for this edit, I was able to use 5 effects. The first one is a parametric EQ, which I just use the vocal enhancer preset, and then I just boost the bass back up because for some reason the bass is like way down here in the preset. So I always boost the bass back up because otherwise your voice sounds a little bit tinny. And then I just sometimes push that a little bit higher as well in the high ends just to really bring the most out of my voice. Every person's voice is different. That is not going to work for every person's voice. It needs to be tweaked just a little bit to get the best out of your voice. Then I've got a tube modeled compressor, which is using, again, the voiceover preset. I have the output gain brought up to 8 decibels instead of 4, which is the default. But otherwise, I haven't touched any of the other thresholds, ratios, attacks, release, all of that. I just leave that as is. Pitch shifter. Now, I tried out a few different settings, manual settings. I tried out a few different presets. What I found worked really nicely for the kind of sound that I was going for that Stranger Things sound was this Deathly Ill preset, and then I dropped it down by 1 semitone. That's all I did. The default is at -1. I brought it down to -2. I didn't want to go too low because then it just starts sounding like a bit ridiculous. So I just wanted to make it still sound like it could be a person, albeit like some weird monstery creation. Then after that, I've layered on some distortion, and bear in mind, it is sequential, so the order of effects matters. So I've once again gone for the presets, and I've gone for Swamp Thing. Tried them all out. This was the best one. And if you need to dial it down at all, you can do so. For me, it worked nicely out of the box, but you will need to adjust it depending on your voice, depending on your delivery. Delivery is everything. And then finally, I added an analog delay just because I wanted to make it seem bigger, grander than it was. And so I added a bit of an echo, so a delay. And I'm just a sucker for a good delay effect. Back to my guitar playing days when I had massive effects rack. So then again, I actually tweaked the settings quite a bit here, but this is, again, it's kind of based on your delivery, based on how many words per second your voiceover has, that kind of thing. For me, this worked. Now, I've said it in many videos before, but I will say it again now because I feel like it's so important to stress this point. The reason that I use these effects racks, instead of adding these effects individually to each voiceover clip, is that the effects rack will look at the whole track as a whole, and it will apply those effects to the whole track in a way that if you apply it to each individual clip, there's a little bit of a processing time before some of the effects kick in Premiere Pro. and it can just be a little bit glitchy. Sneeze. Excuse me. And so that is why I use the effects rack rather than applying effects to individual clips. I very, very rarely apply any effects to individual clips unless it's making something that is on a stereo track but one side, like a badly mixed stereo track, filling that with the opposite side so that it's more like a balanced stereo but not stereo, like mono fake stereo track. Does that make any sense? If you're recording on a camera that has a stereo input and you're using a mono mic like this one, like most mics, then you're just going to have a mono feed, and sometimes it'll stick it on the left channel, and sometimes it'll stick it on the right channel, and the default is left. And so if you don't know what I'm talking about, then it's probably completely irrelevant to you anyway. And if you do know what I'm talking about, then you already know. So I don't know why I'm telling you. But yeah, so point being that I very rarely put effects on the clips directly. I always try and use the effects rack because it just makes more sense. Like, there's more hierarchy to it, and in an edit you need hierarchy. Then in terms of like the glitches that you hear where it's like, this is an unusual build for a DJ, like that kind of thing. I looked into what kind of presets and plugins there were available, but nothing beats good old fashioned splicing and dicing. I don't know if that's the term, but basically just chopping tiny segments of like 2-3 frames and then just duplicating them so that it just like eats and then carries on, or like jumps between words a bit like a glitch and then carries on. And so that's exactly what I did. This is an unusual. And other than that, really, the whole thing is about delivery. Make sure that you are getting the delivery that you want, because you can't make it sound like anything. You do have to have like a good bass delivery to work with. But that is how I got this. This is an unusual build for a DJI RS3 Pro. To sound like this.
This is an unusual build for a DJI RS3 Pro.
Cool stuff. If you liked what you saw in this video,
make sure to give it a thumbs up, or I will come for you in your nightmares.
All right. Cheers.